Hello and welcome all to GameGuru Max Live broadcast number, I think it's 16. So broadcast live to you from me, discussing what? Discussing GameGuru Max's development progress, i.e. what I've been getting up to in the last 7 days. I have a few things to show. Lots of visual things you'll be pleased to hear. But before that, I just want to give you a very quick introduction along the lines of, at the end of this live broadcast, I'm going to answer a couple of questions. And if you want your questions answered, just post them in the live chat. You can put a question mark or put question square brackets. Now, what I do for the answers that I can't give within the time I have is I post them on the GameGuru forums later on with a more thorough and spell-corrected answer. And the way I do it is actually I grab all the live chat and then I separate out the questions. So I would prefer, if you are asking a question, to type it out with starting with a capital letter, proper spell corrected sentence, and then a question mark at the end. That way, when I cut and paste, I can go straight to do the answer instead of correcting the question. So that's my preference. Just letting you know that now, because this is by no means the last live broadcast I'm going to do. In fact, there is seemingly no end in sight now for these live broadcasts. I will continue to broadcast progress for as long as progress needs reporting. And if it's going to be a regular thing for me posting the answers in the chat, it's obviously beneficial to me if I can make that process quick and painless so I can get back to coding, which of course is my passion. So just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I'm pretty sure someone's already anticipated that question. Yeah, thanks Mad Lad Designs. I always ask it, can you hear me? And as soon as someone can hear me, they can post, yes Lee, you can hear you, and I don't have to wait for the 23-second lag that YouTube seems to impose on live broadcasts. So without further ado, and you can see my screen, I'm going to go straight in to the first thing I'd like to show. Now, a lot of these things I'm showing today, in fact, all of the things I'm showing today, I haven't done anything. I did nothing. I just collected it from the community and sought permissions. The first one from our friend Synchromesh, let me just drag it across and play that.
Welcome to GameGuru Max. Simulation initialized. You need to gain access to the upper level. Manipulating objects you find around will assist you.
I've kept the volume high, so hopefully you can hear me and hear this. Sound balancing is a bit tricky when you're doing it live. But you get the idea. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I'll just press pause on that one. You got the nice audio, you got lovely reflections. I'm hoping that we're going to see more of this, more puzzles, things like that. But that's just an idea of what you can do. This is nothing to do with me. All I did is collected together bits of technology, glued them together. But this was completely community inspired. Models created from scratch, using features of the Wicked engine, and this is what you can create. I'm really pleased to be able to share that one. And of course, I'm hoping, as I say, to bring you not only improvements to that level, but if I get the permission to be able to include it in GameGuru Max's final release, so you can actually play that game yourself. And hopefully, who knows, maybe one day it will find its way on Steam. That would be awesome. So this is the next thing I'd like to share. It's a level. It was agreed by the internal team that I am not necessarily the best person to design levels. In fact, I was almost unanimously outvoted. Lee, you will never make a level ever. So I said, okay, well, what's the solution? Well, go out and find someone in the community who's really good at levels. I mean, really good at levels. And so that's what we did. So, mentioning no names at the moment, or it might slip through. You start in a very dark place. Now, hopefully you can hear me and you can hear the atmospheric noises. But I will kind of keep quiet. I'll just run through this level with my torch until we get to the end. So there you go. I hope you like the windows. I'm thinking it would be really good if we could actually cast some volumetric light through those windows. And finally, I'd like to show you this. Now, this isn't going to be included at stock. I also asked some really great artists if they wanted to do DLCs that they would sell as an official DLC for GameGuru Max. And you can see the direction this artist is going in. So it's the Space Marine sort of idea. And what's really cool about these characters is they're not like just fully modelled and then animated and put in. They're actually character creator parts. They, let's just get in a little bit. The heads, the helmet, the bodies, the legs, the boots, any attachments we choose to add, they're all character creator parts. So you can switch and swap. You can create your own characters. And of course, using really high resolution textures, really great modelling and geometry, and then of course the emissive lighting and the glow effect that you get on the armour, all of that being delivered by the Wicked engine. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more characters, and of course this is just the human half. We're probably going to need an adversary who may not be entirely human, but I don't know. I hold my hands up to say this is as exciting for me as it is for you perhaps, in that I'm just looking forward to seeing what's going to be crammed into the rest of this DLC. And of course, down the road, maybe we'll get some sort of space scenery, so you can have spaceships and moons and deserted sort of futuristic stations that these guys can run around in and patrol, maybe with a battle or two. So lots of visuals this week. Got lots of things going on. Obviously, in the background, we do have other things happening in terms of coding, etc. But what's most important, and is sort of one of the reasons why it caused the open-ended release, is a big UI overhaul. The idea of taking everything that the UI is doing and looking at it from the perspective of someone who doesn't necessarily know how to code or create or even how they create levels. You know, maybe they're not experienced at game making. Because there's a lot of areas that were just not intuitive and didn't have a lot of consistency in all the things that was going on. So we're basically going through the UI with a bulldozer and making sure that when what we leave behind will be great. It'll be everything that you would need, either a new user or an experienced user. There'll be something in the UI to cater for that requirement. And in other news, we've actually prioritized the implementation of an auto updater. I'm sure many of you are quite a bit sort of, let's say, tired of downloading almost 2 gigabytes of installer every time we do a build. And it's certainly not justified in that half, if not most, of those files are unchanged. You're downloading the same files over and over again from build to build. So the idea is we're going to build in an auto updater. So you only have to use one installer, install it once, and then within the software, it will then scan your files, detect any differences, grab the latest files from the server, and it will also automatically update you if a new update is available. So we've put that as a high priority because in the long term, it will save me time from doing builds. And it has some other benefits as well, like the speed at which you can get updates. And it has this extra bonus in that it will fix corrupted files, because it will notice that the hash value of a particular file doesn't match the latest one on the server, and it deletes that file and brings that one down. And before you get too concerned, it won't overwrite the stuff that you've done. Your custom stuff is protected. But if you want to take an official file and modify it, we're going to have to look at that. It may get reset back to the latest version. In fact, in the first draft of what we're doing, it certainly will. So if you want to take some asset that we have provided in the stock library and you want to modify it, change the name. Put it in your own folder. Put it in the users folder, something like that. So hopefully that was interesting. I'm now going to switch over to the live chats. Now, if I was super professional, I would have a second person to go through and collect all the questions for me and then throw those questions at me verbally so I can answer questions as I go through the broadcast. As it stands in this format, I literally have to do it at the end. So forgive me if I have to read a few questions and then I'll get to the first answer. As I say, I'm looking for a question mark. It's a suggestion here. Should we should go back to Twitch. We used to use Twitch for our live broadcasts a year or two ago. I just figure let's have all our video content in one place, which is why I've tried out the YouTube live broadcast. And the only reason to go back to Twitch is that 23-second lag. I don't think that really affects anyone. You don't really know in space and time when I'm speaking and when you're listening. So that gap's probably a bit of a misnomer. But yeah. If there's anyone thinking Twitch is a better place to be, then certainly let me know in the forums when I post this recording later on. Here's the first question. Lee, why does it keep closing on me when I try to save? Sounds like a bug. So do a step by step. Create something really simple, save. If it crashes, it's more likely something to do with the system incompatibility, in which case we'll look at a log file. Or if it's something very particular you do with a level that's causing that level to crash, that's another thing, and that'll be a different bug. But please do report as much detail as you can in the beta thread. You'll find it on the forums. It currently says beta 3, so please post it there, and we'll be able to get to that. And on that news, actually, just as an aside, we have now transcribed all of the bugs that you have reported in the beta 1, 2, and 3, which is all the same thread, onto our internal project planning sheet. So we've actually now got all the reports with the screenshots and all the comments assigned to those reports. But please do keep the reports coming until we have a more formal system in place. I always keep forgetting to switch off Steam. I still haven't found out how to actually stop it notifying me. If anyone knows that, then post that in the GameGuru forum as well. It might just save me 5 seconds for a future live broadcast. So here's another question. That's no question about Lee, that's a smiley face. Here's a question from Mantavis. Will we get an option to expand the terrain in Beta 4? No, probably not. There's lots of things happening for Beta 4, and none of them include adding what's called the multi-node system for the terrain. We've built it in. The multi-node, it's based on the multi-node system. We've just added one node in while we do all the more critical things like making sure that you can sculpt and paint and add vegetation to our satisfaction. Once it works great with one node, making more nodes is super simple at this end. And there's no need for massive terrain if the little bit of terrain we've given you doesn't look as good as it can be. So that's going to happen a little bit further on in the future, but it's built into the architecture, so don't worry about it. You are going to have much larger terrains. Here's a question. Will it be possible to customize the in-game menus, menu items, languages, fonts, and will it be possible to integrate videos instead of images at the start screen, menu screen, and loading screen? It is possible, but it's not out of the box drag and drop. So if you can script in Lua, you can do all those things you've just said. Perhaps with the exception of video. Although I imagine there are ways you can do that too, with a bit of craftiness. But out of the box, some sort of menu editor, drag and drop thing, which means you don't have to script and create. No, not for release. Or at least not right now. We are going, like I said, with our big yellow bulldozer all the way through the UI. And if at the end of that process we deem it absolutely critical, you want a drag and drop menu editor before we can call it complete and a finished piece of software, then you may very well get that. You can do it right now with script, but the jury is still out on whether you'll be able to have a drag and drop version of it. Here's a question. Someone's put the question inside the sentence, which is, I've never seen that before. All right, that's just an instruction from Bellidos. Thanks, Mr. 3D. Here's a question. Any visual programming? 3 question marks. No plans to add a visual programming language at this time. It's one of my pet projects, really. This idea of, is there a way in which we can create a visual programming language? Something that isn't as unintuitive as some of the other things I've seen, or, and this is the important thing, a visual programming language that doesn't look like spaghetti mess monster horrible rubbish after about half an hour of adding logic. Some sort of visual system that actually helps rather than hinders for complicated logic sequences. I think there is a solution. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen some things that went close, and I was involved in some projects that got kind of close, but I don't think we're there yet. So that is a little pet thought of mine. It won't go into the release. It's a big task. To do it right, it's a big task. So for now, I'm afraid you're going to have to stick with the Lua scripting system if you want to code or script, and the dynamic Lua system if you want to control your logic and properties through things like value changes and sliders and text and media and things like that. But there is a gap, isn't there, between scripting and moving sliders around, where you get some sort of high level control over logic. And I'm holding out on the fact that there is a solution. I will find it, and eventually it will find its way into Max. And I think, it'll be something you've never seen before, if I have anything to do about it. Is this a question? No question there. Next one. This is from the Exiled Jester. Will there ever be a good way to create a random generation as you progress through a level? Things you would see in a roguelike game. I haven't played the game Rogue, so I apologise if I get this answer wrong, but it sounds like some sort of procedural generation of content as you go through a level, so no 2 levels will be exactly the same. You can certainly do that with scripting. You use enough random commands, you can create quite a lot of procedural stuff. But there's nothing going to be out of the box procedural in GameGuru Max. I think we have our hands full. Just be able to deliver what people wanted to create and put that onto the screen without having the engine suddenly decide for them and generate all kinds of things. So there's no plans for procedural stuff for the first release. Here is a question. It is, will we get tutorial videos but remade for Max? Absolutely. In fact, the work we've been doing so far behind closed doors on the UI has definitely emphasised the importance of not just a couple of tutorials, but tutorials in each of the major sections of the software, and many kinds of tutorials. So a basic tutorial, something that goes into the details, and all accessible from the UI. You don't have to leave and go and find documentation or videos. You are in that section, and then right there in front of you is help on that section in video format and step-by-step interactive tutorials. So that is basically high on our list, and we've been talking about it last week and this week, and we're almost at the point now of starting to implement it on the UI side. So exciting things there. Look forward to that and what you think about it. Next question is down to here. Will it be possible to change the whole landscape material? Sure, you can paint the terrain, but if you mean, can you set things like the normals, the surface attributes, the reflectance, things like that? That will depend on whether it slows down the terrain or not. Wicked Engine, which is what ours is built on, would allow it, but whether it's fast enough, that makes sense. You'll find that most of the big games out there, they actually use a very simple shader for their terrain, because there's a lot of terrain to render. So giving each pixel a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of pixels in that terrain to render, it'll just kill your frame rate. So I'm holding out on the fact that we're going to try and get to AAA terrain. It looks as good as any game you've played. However, if that means we have to sort of do a custom shader and not use all of those extra attributes, then that's what we'll do. We're not going to slow down the terrain rendering system just to have all of those extra toys that ultimately you wouldn't use anyway. Forget that AAA visual look. Here's another question. Price tag on Steam, question mark, question mark. I think the price has been well advertised, and it is consistent, both the TGC pricing and the Steam pricing. I think it's $49.99, with lots of very generous pre-order discounts over the last 6 months or so. So that's the price. I haven't been privy to any conversation where we were going to change the full price from $49.99. So that's hopefully gives you some information. But you can certainly go out. There's plenty of information out there on the various social feeds. Here's a question from Andy Golo. Does the Waypoint path system also support other entities? For example, a car. You could import a car and then attach it to a path, and then the car will follow the path. It won't be very convincing. You won't believe it's a car driving down a road unless it's in a straight line, but you could certainly do that. But I suppose the larger implied question is, are you going to support vehicles in GameGuru Max? Not for release. Don't expect vehicles or anything like that. Certainly expect vehicles from the community, because I've already seen some really nice examples where people have brought in their own models, they've attached them, they've created physics, they've added scripts. It looks really good. But for us, out of the box, we aren't supporting vehicles for release. Here's a question. When will zombie AI be available? I'm hopefully quite soon. I mean, now we've actually got development going in parallel lines. One of those parallels is, as you've seen just now, the seller demo taking on a life of its own. And of course, you want to see zombies in there, proper zombies that will be able to walk around a door, a wall, and through a door, instead of trying to walk through a door frame. So yeah, we're going to be looking at zombie AI, zombie attacks, zombie not noticing you until they smell you, something like that. So expect some zombie AI in the next couple of weeks, I think. Next question would be GG Classic updates to also have node-based terrain like in Max? How do I translate that? Would Classic updates also have node-based like terrain in Max? No, there's no support to backwards implement the terrain-based, the node-based terrain into GameGuru Classic. There is a lot of hooks between Classic and Max, and so bug fixes in Classic will go to Max, and bug fixes in Max will go to Classic. But don't expect any of the large new chunky features in Max to find their way to Classic. It can't work. It can't go backwards in time like that. But certainly all the simple things, like say adding lure commands, you might find them appear in Classic. But whole-scale replacement of the train system in Classic, no, we won't be doing that. Apparently Rogue isn't a game, it's a genre, so that slaps me down. Someone asks, Hayley, you weren't joking when you said I wouldn't regret buying Max. There's time yet. Oh, there's time left for regret. But thank you very much for your comments. Okay, so I'm going to read through just a lot of conversations. Rick said he wouldn't be joining the call, but he did. So thanks, Rick, for your attention, and good luck with your next call. Going down to find a question mark. Here we go. Will we ever get third-person perspective? ... Eventually, question mark. I think you'll understand that in order to achieve the level of quality that we want for this product, it's best that we focus on as few things as possible, but enough things that it ends up as a product you can do stuff with. And so even though we do have the third-person perspective still in the engine, you can use it in Classic, and it's still inside the Max engine hiding away. But I don't want to focus on third-person until we've really cracked first-person and VR. I want to make sure that it's a great experience, and then no one can really deny that. Yeah, if you want to create a fast, good-looking game, you can use GameGuru Max. I think once we get to that point, then we can start having conversations about third person. Because if you think about it, third person is as big a genre, if not bigger, than first person. I mean, just think of Grand Theft Auto. I mean, that's a huge sort of mechanic that you want to get right. So I think that's a separate thing. And I think we'll do it justice if we then get all the other things done first and then look at third person with a vengeance. I think that's the best approach. So I'm scrolling to the next question. Here we go. Hasn't third person been in GG, question mark? Just drag an avatar to the start. Yeah, in Classic you can do that. So in Classic, if you want to do third person perspective, use Classic. It's all in there. You just drag a character onto a start marker, and then you can go into the script bank and edit the player controls. You can do all the logic that you want for third person. I've already seen some really interesting takes on our third person implementation because we opened it up so you could actually do that in script. Here's another question. How come when I get close to an imported image, my FPS tanks? That is probably likely to do with physics. It's not necessarily how many polygons you've got in your model and it renders it. Modern graphics cards can render quite a lot of polygons. But those same polygons are actually being used to simulate the physics. So when you get really close to it, your physics system is trying to resolve an almost infinite number of ray bounces to try and figure out where the player should be. Like it's trying to tuck itself under your model. There is a plan in place to do hull reduction. So the physical geometry is much lower polygon count than the visual one. But for now, just change the collision mode to something like a box. And providing your object is generally box shaped, then your FPS won't tank and you can have lots and lots of your imported models. In order to do that, you open up the FPE file of the entity, look for the field collision mode and set it to one of the appropriate values. The appropriate values you'll find in the docs folder of Classic. You won't find it in Max. Although we're going to do a better job of letting you set that within the UI rather than forcing you to go into Windows Explorer, then text, and then open up a file and make sure you get the field name right and then the value that you don't know about because it's somewhere else. You see what I mean? A nice proper UI which should be able to solve all that for you. But that's what you do if you want to get your FPS back up for your imported models. Here's a question. Sorry, I have a third question. Is VSync on board to avoid screen tearing? Yeah, VSync is on by default, so we can avoid those tearing artifacts. So when you see 60 FPS, sure, your system can probably clock like 200. I'm relatively pleased with the performance we've got so far in spots. But we set the VSync on just so you don't have the tearing. But you can certainly switch that off in the setup.ini file. Any thoughts on a new type of nav mesh system for AI? Yes, I have been thinking about it actually. There is one, it's open source. A lot of games use it. I can't remember its name off the top of my head, but I think anyone who's in the scene will actually know what I'm talking about. It does mean ripping out what we've got, but if what we've got is now quite old, it might be the right way forward and solve many other issues at the same time. For example, the one I'm thinking about, rather than it just be some two-dimensional plane of various obstructions within almost a two-dimensional zone plane, this is three-dimensional, so you can actually have like areas a character can walk on, then it can walk along a little plank, then go to another level, underneath another level, or above a level, so you can have planes above each other, which actually have their own independence. You can kind of do that now with GameGuru Max Classic, but it's a bit of a fudge, and you have to edit all the zones yourself. Wouldn't it be great if the engine could just automatically figure out what you can walk on and what you can't, and then the characters just use that information? So there is something out there I'm interested in. Whether it actually gets into a release, it just depends. It depends whether what we've got is enough, or if it turns out, no, it's not quite sufficient. Yeah, we'll drop it and we'll put in a better system. So yes, I have been thinking about it, but no promises, no plans at this stage. It's just a thought. It's just a Lee thought. Here's a question mark. When importing music or sound effects, will there be the same as on then old GameGuru? I'm thinking about using LMMS. Good. LLMS. I don't know what LMMS is. But importing is in the old one, sure. I mean, you just drop files into a folder. You select whether it's a music that can be triggered with a trigger point or within your script, and away you go. You can create all the audio effects you like. I'm sure that's not the answer you want, but if you qualify in this live chat, I'll give you a more thorough answer in the GameGuru thread when I actually write out a full description of all my answers. So I'm just looking at the clock, and I think I broke the record. I've just hit the 30-minute mark. And so I could continue to answer questions, but I know you've got places to go. And these live broadcasts should be punchy. They should be short. You don't want to listen to me for 2 hours. And so that was my final answer. The rest of your answers you will find on the GameGuru thread once I've finished editing this live broadcast and putting it up as a recording. And then you'll be able to find that on the Game Guru's main forum thread. So I hope you enjoyed this live broadcast. Thanks very much for all your questions. Plenty of things going on in the background, so hopefully lots more to report next Wednesday at the usual time, 4 p.m. BST. So until then, I shall say goodbye and have a great rest of week. Bye.